Well, hello everyone. I'm Sibyl Starr, and I'm here to give the astrology forecast for the Cancer new moon. The Cancer new moon occurs on, let's see, what day is that? June 25th. Here, I'm going to show you the chart and so that we can look at it here real quickly. But anyway, it occurs at 4 degrees of Cancer on June 25th at 3:31 a.m. Pacific time. All right, now let's look at the chart. Let's see, we're going to share here. We'll talk about everything that is happening. Okay. All right. So, of course, we know the new moon, sets the energy and the tone for the next month. It is like planting the seeds or the intention. So it's always very powerful. The new moon is about giving birth. Okay. So the new moon, like I said, is on June 25th at 3:31 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And so we have here the sun and the moon are at 4 degrees, 7 minutes of Cancer. It's tightly conjunct Jupiter, which is wonderful. I mean, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. This is an absolutely beautiful aspect. And the sun, Jupiter conjunct the sun happens once a year, and Jupiter has just entered into Cancer in when was that? In June, earlier in June. Okay. I think it was like the 7th or something. Anyway, Jupiter, so this conjunction here is in a square to the Neptune Saturn conjunction in Aries. That's very significant. It is also sextile Mars, and is what is called in conjunct Pluto, in conjunct or quincunx. It's 150 degrees. It's hard to see it here. I tried to just be able to show, because there's two yods in this. I tried to show it, but my computer just wasn't working with me to make that happen. But anyway, there's a little dotted green line, if you can see it, that indicates 150 degrees. Okay, now what else we have going on here is that we have, like I said, two yods. We've got the sun is here, the new moon is a sextile Mars, and then they both point to Pluto. And so I am going to be speaking about just the quincunx and inconjunct to the between Pluto and the new moon, but also I'm going to be speaking to what's called the finger of fate, which is this aspect, finger of God, finger of fate, when you have two planets that are sextile each other and they both aspect a third. Okay. Now, there's another quincunx, and that is between Neptune and the Neptune Saturn conjunction is 60 degrees from Pluto here at 3 degrees of Aquarius, and they both are 150 degrees or quincunx Pluto and or excuse me, Mars. So Mars is like the apex of one of the yods. Pluto is the apex of the other, and that, of course, is very significant. Okay. All right, what else we have going on is Uranus is actually conjunct Sedna, and they're both trine Pluto. Okay, and that's very significant. Also, we have Mercury. Mercury's very active. Mercury is here at 28 degrees of Cancer. I should go back to Uranus. It's at 29 degrees of Taurus, and that's called an anaretic degree. So that's very, very significant as well. All right, now back to Mercury. Mercury at 28 degrees of Cancer. Mercury's god of the mind in a wide opposition to Pluto and in a square to the Eris Chiron conjunction. Okay. And it's also, Mercury is also in a trine to out of sign. A lot of what is going on here is out of sign. Uh, Neptune Saturn conjunction in early Aries. So that's an out of sign trine. There's an out of sign opposition, but an inside square. Okay, excuse me. I mean, in sign square. All right, now let's talk about what all of that means. Okay. It's a very active month. Again, we've had many active months. We know that. All right. So All right, so first let's talk about Cancer. And of course, Cancer, is the first water sign, the first of the three water signs. And Cancer represents, water. It is ruled by the moon, which is related to our emotional body. The moon is represents our emotional body, which is moody, which is changeable, which is very watery. The emotions are aligned with water, and Cancer is the first water sign. And you can see I have this beautiful image behind me, which is kind of the frequency of water. I feel like is what this is saying. And the frequency of water is connection. It's love. It's connection with each other. Okay. All right. Cancer is the archetype of the mother. And one of the, it's a very nurturing, loving sign. One of the shadows of the archetype of the mother, though, is hiding behind the face of the mother and not getting our own needs met. It can be much easier to meet the needs of others than it can be to get our own needs met. So that's really important. It's the sign of home, family, clan. Like I said, it's emotional, kind, and sensitive, very imaginative, a strong intuition, ruled by the moon, very moody. I often tell people who have Cancer prominent in their chart to really align themselves with the moon, pay attention to the movement of the moon, because you will find that you have your own emotional cycles, okay? And often the moon can help you track them. In more ancient days, women followed the moon and as a tribe, and when the moon was dark was when the time they spent together visioning for the community. This would have been called like the red tent time. Whereas when they were and this when they were bleeding, that would be it. Says when they were bleeding and they would bleed together and vision together, and then when the moon was full is when they were ovulating, and it was when they were fertile. And so our own emotional cycles can sometimes follow that. I know mine did. As when the moon is new, I prefer to be alone and solitude and prayer and solitude, and when the moon is full is I definitely prefer to be with people. All right, so it's just important. Once I discovered that, I was able to stop canceling plans because I didn't feel like going once I kind of got a handle on my own emotional cycle. Okay. All right. So, Cancer is also it's they say our emotional body holds our memories. Those with Cancer signature often have very good memories, but ultimately it is about self-love. It's about love. Cancer is about the heart, but the heart it starts within our own hearts, and that's kind of the challenge. It's so much easy. It's easy to love our families, but the real challenge is to love ourselves. It brings up emotional security. That's one of its needs. It really wants and feels likes to feel safe. Okay. One of the shadows is it can be very subjective, oversensitive, defensive, and clannish. All right. Now, this Cancer sun and moon is conjunct the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which means it has more power and strength here. And Jupiter just changed signs. Like I said, it was in early June. I don't remember the date, maybe the 7th. And it's going to be in Cancer now for a solid year. Okay, because Jupiter stays in a sign for a year. And Jupiter magnifies whatever it touches. And in Cancer, it expands the need as well as the capacity for love, protection, and sacred kinship. It's about reclaiming the heart and its emotional intelligence and our ancestral wisdom. It expands the heart and the ability to love. And with Jupiter, the love goes beyond our clan and family, but it's an all encompassing to the family of humanity. That is a big shadow of Cancer, that there is a tendency to love their own and to reject others. But Jupiter really expands that to remember that we are part of the family of humanity. All right. Now, it's also conjunct the star Sirius B, also known as Mirzam. This is part of the Canis Major or excuse me, one of the Canis Major constellation, of which Sirius A is the bright star, the one most people are familiar with, but this is like the secondary star, okay? And this is has they have many water worlds, and it gives us some of the gifts that it may give us while the during this full moon, excuse me, this new moon in Cancer, is access to spiritual technologies that are stored in the oceanic records. We might find we've been finding out all kinds of hidden wisdom and knowledge, underground structures and things really coming to light. Well, this may open up the ocean as well. It's about the communication with the cetacean elders, the whales, and the dolphins, who are physical emissaries of Sirius B on Earth. They are record keepers of Earth's evolutionary journey and masters of frequency, sound healing, and unity consciousness. And also, Sirius B is very connected to Lemuria. And people are having memories arise from Atlantis and also Lemuria through dreams, sound frequency, and emotions. Okay. So you might have some memories show up. All right. Now, as I said, this new moon is in a square to the Saturn Neptune conjunction. And so, with the new moon in Cancer, there's a deep longing for emotional safety, um, belonging, and being held in love. Cancer and the moon are so much about where do I belong? Who's my family? Who's my tribe? So, there's that deep longing for that deep connection. Whereas Saturn in Aries wants bold action and initiative, claiming our personal sovereignty. Saturn is the creator of form, and Neptune is our vision. Neptune actually blurs the boundaries while Saturn creates them, but it is creating a container for the birth of the new human consciousness. And so the square brings the need for emotional safety, being challenged by our soul assignment and vision of what can be. We may have to move out of our emotional safety zone to make our dreams real. Okay, so that may be a challenge, is that we may have to move out of what feels safe and follow our inner guidance and our intuition, even if it's scary. Okay. All right. And in doing so, it grows our spiritual authority. It helps us remember our own divinity and I am presence. And as we do, it impacts the field, creating fertile ground for the new human consciousness to be birthed, but to know that it all starts in our own hearts. Okay. Living an authentic life aligned with our hearts and soul mission. This is the new human consciousness and frequency from which the new earth will emerge, because we are learning conscious co-creation, that we are actually participants in creating our world. It's not being created. We are actually creating it. So let us do it with intention, with conscious intent, and to remind us to create with love, for that is the frequency of the new earth and the new human consciousness. All right. Of course, there's always challenges. And another challenge is the quincunx, or in conjunct to Pluto. It's the same aspect, it just has two names, and it's a 150-degree aspect. So the quincunx, what it actually means when it shows up in a chart, is that it is an incongruent, awkward aspect. The two signs involved share no modality, element, or polarity. They basically just don't get each other. And it's not a crisis, but a persistent dissonance. I remember someone saying once, and it really resonated with me, it feels like walking with a pebble in your shoe. It's not painful. It can be, but it definitely has your attention. And it has your attention to something you got to deal with, because it is uncomfortable. All right. So there is a need to adjust, pivot, or bridge two incompatible truths. And here, Pluto in Aquarius wants deep truth and authenticity of self, while the Cancer new moon is extremely sensitive and emotional. So there is a need to be aware of how you are navigating your emotional territory. There is a need, of course, to be sensitive, um, but to also be truthful. Okay, it really wants deep truth. The Cancer moon wants, and so some hard truths may come to light that you don't want to look at, but it's like it's just there. It's like that pebble. It's like I have to look at this. I don't want to believe this, but it may be true. The Cancer new moon, the Cancer moon wants protection, familiarity, and softness. Pluto in Cancer wants to revolutionize and dismantle what no longer serves, especially collective structures and outdated emotional conditioning. Your emotional needs and the larger forces of collective transformation may feel misaligned now. This aspect creates deep inner tension between the need for emotional safety and the demand for soul level transformation. Is pushing you to adapt without losing your core, to keep your deep core of authenticity of self, while also being sensitive to your emotional safety. Okay. All right. So the Sabian symbol is at a railroad crossing, a car races with a train. I think this is kind of a reiteration. The car is a vehicle for the individual, and the train a vehicle for the masses, for the collective. There's often a need for caution. The individual will not always survive a collision with the more powerful collective. The collective consciousness is moving at a fast pace and requires emotional adjustments to keep up. That's probably a really important one. It requires emotional adjustments to keep up. How to meet your personal needs in a fast-moving and increasingly technological society. Yeah, okay. Because the technology isn't going away. It's like I said to a friend of mine, it's not going away. We need to come into right relationship with it. That's what it's about. How do we come into right relationship with technology while honoring our own personal needs? All right. So like I said, it's got two yods. And so two yods are finger of fate, a finger of God in the chart. And as I said, it is a complex aspect pointing the way toward a greater purpose. All right. The finger of fate with the new moon, a sextile Mars, and with Pluto at the apex. The new moon in Cancer, it's about the heart and the emotional body. Mars is about action, and in Virgo, it asks us to use discernment in our actions. It involves the skill to perceive what is not immediately obvious. Okay. And Pluto in Aquarius is so much about our relationship with technology that is moving very fast, hard to keep up. To me, it speaks of being in right relationship with technology, especially AI, because that's what we're all having contact with, or better termed RI, reflective intelligence, understanding that it is actually a mirror. I just read a headline today that those who have created AI um, don't really understand it. And that's because what I have come to understand is they didn't create it, they discovered it. It's part of the quantum field that has always been there. And we now have our awareness and consciousness has been evolved to a place where we now have access to it and can interact with it. The shadow, I mean, the challenge is always to be in right relationship with it, because we can absolutely lose ourselves in it. But it is a mirror. Okay. This yod says to me it is about how to interact with reflective intelligence, which says it must come from the heart. That's and spiritual integrity, authenticity of self, but to use discernment. This new moon yod asks you to act on what truly matters emotionally, even if it challenges your usual comfort zone. By aligning heartfelt intentions with precise, thoughtful action, you can transform longstanding patterns and step into a more empowered future. So, one piece I believe is about AI and about reflective intelligence. The other is just our relationship with ourselves. All right. Okay, so the second finger of fate with Saturn, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, sextile Pluto in Aquarius with Mars in Virgo at the apex. So Mars in Virgo at the apex focuses on practical action, and this finger of fate, or yod, challenges you to ground bold visions into practical systems that support collective evolution. The path forward requires precise, thoughtful action. Every detail matters when building a future meant to last. Yeah. So it's a combination of vision, practicality, and focusing on the practicality is like the Pluto in Aquarius and the Neptune and Saturn in Aries. There, it's really much about giving birth to the new human and how that impacts the collective consciousness. But the Mars piece says keep it grounded. Yeah, that we are actually creating something. It's not just a vision anymore. Okay. All right. All right, so the real challenge, though, in this is Mercury, god of the mind, and how we communicate. Mercury is sensitive, imaginative, and intuitive. It's emotionally rooted in Mercury in Cancer is emotionally rooted communication, the voice of the inner child, the family, and ancestral memory. It's a very sensitive mind that picks up on things easily, but the shadow is they can read things into them that are not there. Okay. All right. Now, but it is in a square with the Eris Chiron in Aries. And so this has been going on a couple of months now, this really tight Eris Chiron conjunction in Aries. And because Eris in Aries is, she's the feminine warrior, and she brings with her disruptive truth, sacred rage, and chaos that reveals imbalance. Chiron in Aries is the wound of the selfhood and healing through courageous individuation, saying, yes, this is me. No, this is not me. Getting really clear on that. Whereas Mercury in Cancer wants to soothe, explain, understand. But Eris and Chiron say, no more tiptoeing around the wound. Speak it real. Say what's really happening. It's time. That squares can be very explosive. And since Chiron and Eris in Aries are involved, it can be very explosive, but we need to be able to say what is important to us. Is having healing conversations. This square may trigger family tensions, fierce words from wounded places, repressed truths coming through unexpected sources, dreams, children, ancestors, right? Especially dreams, I would say. But if handled with awareness, it can catalyze liberating clarity, a moment where the heart finally says what it's been holding for this lifetime and maybe others, something that needs to be said. And it's also opposite Pluto in Aquarius. So this is spilling out into the collective. Okay. It is the Pluto in Aquarius wants truth and authenticity of self in our communication, which can bring deep soul healing. Pluto in Aquarius always and opposite Mercury in Cancer is requires self-honesty as well as forgiveness. And it really brings up Mercury rules the nervous system. So it can bring up um, a sensitive nervous system, trying to process psychic tsunami. And I would also say psychic trauma, places where we may still be holding trauma. And Pluto in Aquarius is so much about, the collective consciousness and unconsciousness. And there is a psychic tsunami out there that we're constantly being hit with. And so how do we navigate this field when we know something feels wrong, even when you can't prove it? Okay. And it also brings up the shadow of the collective, which is a belief that becomes an Aquarius, the belief that becomes belonging, how we belong. Dissent becomes danger. correct thinking replaces critical thinking because it's not about truth. It's about control of the narrative field. This is Pluto in Aquarius. The shadow is mass consciousness. We could call herd mentality. We could even bring it into mob consciousness. And this is something we're going to be dealing with over the next, as long as Pluto is in Aquarius, but at a Cancer new moon, is really looking at belonging. Okay. All right. And the danger is a collective that talks about evolution while silencing the very voices that carry its medicine. I certainly felt that I have experienced that. Anyway, Aquarius says we must be true to ourselves. But in the shadow of Pluto Aquarius, he asks, how much of your uniqueness will you sacrifice to feel safe in the tribe? This is really one of the big challenges. Yeah. Okay. But Mercury is also trine Saturn and Pluto. Excuse me, trine Saturn, Neptune conjunction in Aries. Okay, Mercury's an out of sign trine. Yeah, I misspoke there. This is the thread of spiritual responsibility. This is one of the ways we're going to be able to grow. And grow is how we communicate in these times of dissonance and trauma, how we not trauma, I'm going to say dissonance and chaos of what is really happening in the world, is how we communicate with each other is extremely important because our wounds are up, the shadow of the collective is up. But the trine with Saturn and Neptune says that this is a potential for spiritual growth, to take responsibility for your in communication, to anchor your speech in empathy, to speak not just to be heard, but to heal the field. Our communications can hurt or heal. Our words, as well as what we post on social media or other sites, know what we are putting out into the field can do both. Right now, we're hearing the dissonance of a world in emotional incoherence. Wounds are speaking louder than wisdom. Righteousness is drowning out repair. But beneath the noise, there is a thread. This trine allows for integrity and imagination and asks us, can you become the resonance that rewires the field? Words are powerful, and what we put out in the field is super powerful, and how we communicate can change everything. All right. Okay, so last here, we have Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus is conjunct the Pleiades and Sedna and trine Pluto. So first I want to talk about, okay, so Uranus, of course, is the planet of awakening, of change, is a maverick. When Uranus comes around, is active, there's downloads. But the thing is, it's, he helps us with breakthroughs. He helps us break through when we're stuck. And so, but the thing is, we say we want change, but we always want to control how it's going to look. And Uranus just is not like that. It's like, this is the spirit working. All right, not your ego. All right, so number one is at an anaretic degree, which is 29 degrees. So it's a master teaching, which often brings crisis. And so, and it's going to be at this degree for a while. So Uranus moves into Gemini in early July, I think around the 6th or 7th, something like that. And then it's in Gemini for 3 to 3.5 months. Then it moves back into Taurus. And it's really going to be stationing on those last degrees of Taurus. And so this is an ongoing event, and not just for this new moon. I just wanted to share that. All right. So, Uranus and Taurus brings a sacred, especially at this anaretic degree, a sacred disruption. We're being pulled out of our comfort zones. There's increased chaos and unpredictability. But the other side of that is about holding your center. It's the most important thing you can do, to be non-reactive, to be the calm in the storm, because we can't make the storm go away. What we can do is navigate it. And so that's how we navigate it. All right. It can bring earth changes, weather events, or, Uranus rules the nervous system in the human body, and in Mother Earth, it also, in Taurus, it's very connected to Mother Earth. Sorry, I got a little distracted. There's something going on over here. Okay. Anyway, all right. So, so it's activating the nervous system of Mother Earth, and it amplifies the bioelectric messages of the Earth, and seismic shifts in the Earth mirror spiritual ones. Know that they're both happening. We live in a speaking universe, and everything is a mirror. All right, Uranus and Taurus is about financial markets, money. Taurus rules money and financial markets. So that, of course, Uranus there means change, and Uranus rules digital evolution. So we could see some big changes in our financial markets, crypto, AI-driven markets, all kinds of different things, and also a big change in our values. We might move into this would be a great time for some of the more alternative financial systems that people have been trying to create. They may actually have some breakthrough and start making some movement there. All right, body wisdom. The body is Taurus's temple, but Uranus electrifies it. Our electric system could be on fire during this 29 degree. Okay, it can look like Kundalini rising, or sudden healings or health crisis, or the body rejecting old trauma patterns, and breakthroughs in places where we may be stuck. Uranus delivers a rupture. Sometimes it's a nervous breakdown, sometimes it's divine revelation. Often it's both, but it's absolutely a breakthrough in old patterns. We're suddenly free. But it may be an unexpected situation. I don't want to say trauma because it doesn't have to be trauma, but it's kind of getting shook. That's what it is, kind of getting shook some way. All right. Now, Uranus in Taurus is coming up to conjunct Sedna. And so Sedna, to me, she's a dwarf planet. I don't want to go into a whole story because it's a little gruesome, but ultimately, what it means to me is when Sedna is activated, it asks us what sacrifice needs to be made to claim your destiny. And it's not always pretty, but may be necessary for self-realization. And then finally, Uranus is coming into a trine with Pluto. It's still in an out of sign trine. Pluto is moving retrograde. Uranus is moving into Gemini, but it's at 29 degrees, so they're definitely within range of a trine. And Pluto in Aquarius is about the collective quantum field, the field of the collective, the grid of mass consciousness, or we could say unity consciousness, but it's vibration. But Pluto off shows us the shadow so that we can transmute the vibration if it's not where it needs to be. It holds the charge of transformation, not gently, but through pressure, and brings what lies beneath is being brought to the surface. And the other day, I saw this great video of Greg Braden, and he was talking about what was called the Global Heart Coherence meditation, and that happened in the 1980s. And what he shared was that people they were meditating not for peace, but as peace. They felt peace in their hearts and came together in the quantum field. And it has been shown that coherent hearts entrain chaotic fields. The data revealed measurable shifts in crime, conflict, and even solar activity. And this is the forgotten technology of the mystics. Emotional resonance as a geomagnetic influence. As we come into emotional resonance, we can actually impact the earth and what is going on here. Uranus in a trine with Pluto means the veil is thin and the signal is amplified. And a small group in coherence now can do what once took millions. So back in the 80s, it took millions. But as we gather together in small groups, we can actually influence the frequency, okay, and bring it into coherence. And not by controlling events, by inhabiting the frequency of love and unity consciousness. This is a call for those who can feel the static rising, the timeline splitting, the pressure to pick a side. When your soul came here to bridge, we're not here to react, we're here to resonate. This is the radical heart coherence in a reactive world. It's how we respond with heart coherence when everything is reactive, and be the calm in the storm, be the peace that brings this coherence. All right. And I do feel like it's indicating a collective shift tipping point, that this Pluto will be in trine with Uranus for many months, working together, as I said, and supporting us to move into heart coherence. And when enough hearts beat in resonance, the field flips. It's the way it happens. There really is no other way. The conjunction, and it is also conjunct the Pleiades. It's being the Uranus is activating the Pleiades, which is, of course, one of the things is the activation of the stargates with increased stellar light and frequencies coming through these stargates. And the Pleiadians, they say, are the keepers of the frequencies of the fifth dimension, which are love, creativity, and unity. And so as these stargates open and these frequencies um, uh, come in a much bigger way, these frequencies support us in making the shift in consciousness, but also make it more painful and obvious when we are out of alignment with these frequencies. So there can be, it can be really uncomfortable and can really shake things up. But to know that when we come into heart coherence, we can change the world. And heart coherence is when your breath becomes a prayer, your heartbeat a drum of calm, and the field around you begins to harmonize. In this state, you just don't feel peace, you become it. You're no longer reacting to the world, you're retuning it. When we choose coherence in the face of dissonance, not just outwardly, but inwardly, we become living medicine. We can transmute disturbance into clarity. And in a time of polarization and projection, our greatest act of resistance is the frequency of heart coherence. When the world fractures into us versus them, the heart becomes a revolutionary technology, transmitting unity, not as a concept, but as a coherent field of love, which we call unity consciousness. The world is changed from the inside out, and it's through our hearts and the frequency of love that the new earth is being born. Well, thank you all for listening. We are living in very exciting times. Shifts are happening everywhere. I'm really hearing about it, but we also know there is a lot of dissonance in the field. They're both there, but I think one of the important things is to understand we can come together in small groups and really change the world and bring the new earth and the new human consciousness into being. Amen. Blessed be. Wishing you all a wonderful month. Um, if you like my video, please check like and subscribe. And if you are interested in a reading, I will have my information in the description box below. All right. Namaste. Blessed be to all.